First of all, a question that I couldn't help but want to ask was, when and why did, I'm going to butcher it, but Ilyena Lydia Vasilievna Mironov become Helen?
Mironovna.
When did it become Helen Mirren, and why?
It became Helen Mirren when I was about 10. Actually, I was born Helen Lydia Mironov, in fact. Obviously, you've just explained what I would have been called if I had been born in Russia. My father was born in Russia, and our surname was Mironov, which made me Moronovna. But when I was about 10, my grandfather died, and at that point, my father, who really didn't want to be a foreigner or a Russian particularly, wanted to assimilate in the British society, changed our name to Mirren. So that was when I became Mirren.
And growing up, were the movies or TV or theater a big part of your life? Did you watch a lot, go a lot, or?
No, absolutely not at all. Not even the radio. I mean, what the hell did we do at home? We talked, actually, around the dinner table. We talked and did our homework and went to bed. But no, I'd seen very few movies by the time I was like 18. I could count them on one hand, the ones that I remember seeing, one of which was the Bolshoi Ballet. Mm-hmm. So you can see we weren't great sort of, cinema goers. We didn't have television at home until after I left home, so I was never exposed to television at home. And it was only after I left home that I sort of, we saw a little bit of theatre, but not even a lot of that because, it was too expensive to go to the theatre. So
I'd read, though, wasn't there some production of Hamlet that really made an impact on you?
Yes, it was an amateur production. Yeah. The Southend-on-Sea, amateur dramatics, Shakespeare Society, did a production of Hamlet, and my parents did take me to that. I was probably about 12, 13 at the time, and that absolutely transported me. It was probably a terrible production. I'm sure it was. Bad costumes, bad acting. But I think to be exposed to the story of Shakespeare, that world where Ophelia goes mad and, and the ghost and it's incredibly romantic to a 13-year-old girl, this romantic figure of Hamlet, I was just completely transported by it. And I think that was a seminal moment in my life and made me want to become an actress, definitely.
Well, that anticipates the next question. I mean, do you remember acting just sort of for fun, messing around before it became a serious thing? And then was there a moment that made you say, this is what I really want to pursue?
Well, we didn't do much drama at school. We didn't really have, like nowadays they have drama programs, we didn't have that in those days. We had a nativity play, and I played Eve. So our nativity play started right at the beginning. It must have been terribly long. And I had a great costume, which was a bit of old fur. It was fabulous, sort of, an old, that every Eve played, so it was very smelly, but I thought it was very glamorous. And I loved that. I loved being Eve. First of all, I was the Virgin Mary. I was quite good as the Virgin Mary too, and then I was a great Eve. And then I don't know, just little bit by little bit, I realised that something I really enjoyed, and then seeing the Shakespeare led me into the whole idea of theatre, and especially Shakespeare, which was really why I started off my career doing Shakespeare.
When did it first occur to you that maybe you might also pursue film and television?
Well, American film at that time didn't really appeal to me. I just couldn't find subjects or characters that interested me in American film. But I got, as a student in London, I got exposed to European film. I worked as an usherette in a small art house theatre in Hampstead, a very famous one called the Everyman. I got to see all these wonderful art house films, one of which actually was Citizen Kane, so I knew that some great films were made in America. But the great European filmmakers were exposed to me for the first time, and I wanted to be a European. I wanted to be Monica Vitti or Simone Signoret or especially Anna Magnani. But I knew sort of that I couldn't do that. But anyway, so I wanted to be a great theatre actress, and it was only after working in the theatre for about 4 or 5, 6 years. I did little bits on film, but I was so awful. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I realised there was this whole world of acting and of storytelling and of drama that was that I didn't know anything about. So I sort of consciously made an effort to learn, and doing Caligula was, part of my education. An education that's only really completed, in spite of all the movies that I did, and I did a lot of television, but really doing Prime Suspect was the thing that really ultimately taught me about film acting.
There's plenty of nonsense that's out on the internet, so I don't know if this is true, but I had read about one thing where you had years ago gone to a palm reader.
I did.
Is this true?
I did. Yes.
Can you share what that was about? Because it's amazing. It sort of was.
It was, yes. It was extraordinary. And actually, I got a message recently. How did I get it? But I guess through an email from the son of the man I went to see.
Really?
Yes, I was in my early 20s and very fraught, as one is, because you have all your ambition and dreams, but you don't know whether anything's ever going to happen for you. Is it all going to go down the plug hole, And so, are you okay?
Yeah, no.
So, you're, I was very neurotic about all of this, and I was told about this palm reader, and I'm not into that sort of thing normally, but I went off to this palm reader. He was an Indian guy in a very ordinary house, suburban house. Went into his front room, and you gave him the money, and he gave you a piece of paper and a pencil. He said, write what I say down, because you will forget what I say. So I advise you, because I will speak quite fast, just write it down. And he took my hand, and he started talking, scribbling away, And I sort of staggered out of there like an hour later with this sheaf of papers with my writing on it, sort of that represented the rest of my life. But I couldn't, he was quite right, I couldn't remember what he'd said. But I looked at this sheaf and I thought, you know what, I don't want to know. I don't want to know what the future holds for me. I want to go through life as an adventure. And so I threw it in the nearest rubbish bin. There was a rubbish bin just down the road, and I threw it in the rubbish bin and walked off. But the only thing I did remember was he said, you will have success in your life, you'll be very successful, but you won't reach your pinnacle of success until later on in your life, after you're 40. Of course, when you're 20, you really don't want to hear that, It's like, are you kidding me? I'm going to be alive at 40? And he was right. I was very successful. I was very successful as always sort of, as a young actress, and I was always playing leading roles in theatre and television, film. But I didn't become sort of so-called household name till I was in my 40s.
There's been this chapter, I guess, of the last 20 or so years where I think it's 4 nominations within that period, Oscar nominations. I just am curious what you've made of it, because it is sort of unusual to have the trajectory go the way that yours has.
Yes, it is pretty unusual. Yeah. You're right. I mean, I think it's a combination of things. I think the fact that the world is changing, so much of everything that we do as actors is simply a reflection of the world around you. So the world around me has changed so substantially since when I was, in my early 20s, especially as far as women are concerned. So I think that that's a part of it, and then the pure luck, the awful random luck of being, asked to play a role that's so perfectly well timed, like Jane Tennyson in Prime Suspect, or the Queen. These roles coming your way, where if they'd veered off and gone to another actress, it just would be a whole different story. So one recognises the huge good fortune, and then, as I say, the fact that the world around you has changed, and so yes, I think you're right. I think that my trajectory would not have been possible, 40 years ago.
And Hitchcock, it's a first-time director a featured narrative director who manages. How does somebody like that, as great as the material is and all that, how does he manage to get two terrific Oscar-winning actors, some of the most popular sort of up-and-coming actors? Just what sold you on the idea that this was, the next great one to take?
Well, you never know. You never know. You just have to follow your feeling, your instinct, and all the rest of it. But I just really liked Sacha. I met with him, and he's very smart. He's funny, very important, and he had that wonderful combination between great confidence and great humility. And that's a hard combination to achieve, Very often it's the other way around. No confidence and great arrogance, and that's a killer. When you get the reverse, which is a kind of confidence but married to a humility, a recognition of the fact that I don't know, I've never done this before, so what do I do? That's great. It's charming, and in a funny way, it gives you more confidence. So, I'm a great one for jumping in at the deep end anyway. And of course, you never know what the result is going to be, but you hope for the best every single time. You hope for the best. He handled me and Tony and all the rest of this stellar cast with charm and kindness, and really in the end that's all you ask for as an actor, is someone to be kind and to make you laugh, and Sacha did both. And he delivered a wonderful script. That was the other thing. He had resolved issues in the script, and just made the piece cohesive. So when he presented that work, then it makes you sit up and go, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. He understood what was required for the drama of this piece.
Just one last thing, if I can. I wanted to ask you, how familiar, first of all, you were with this sort of secret or silent partner in this Hitchcock, legend. A lot of people are not aware of Alma at all. Mm-hmm. And to that, and related to that, to what extent the way that their relationship is portrayed in the film and the Whitfield Cook element and all of that, to what extent is that actually grounded in fact?
I didn't know anything about Alma until I was sent the script, and obviously then I, looked it up and went, whoa, I didn't know anything about this woman. What a wonderful discovery. What a great surprise. What a little jewel in the history of filmmaking to know about this woman. So, that was just pure pleasure. And I had the great advantage of the book that her daughter wrote about, here was the daughter of the great genius, Alfred Hitchcock, and the one book she chooses to write about her family life, she chooses to write about her mother and to call her Alma Revel. And because she did want to have her mother's contribution recognized. So that was an incredible resource for me. As far as the relationship with Whitfield, we know that he was a friend of the family, no question about that. She and Whit did write together. He did write a book called Taxi to Dubrovnik. We don't suggest in the film that they have an affair. We just say that they have a collegial, working relationship. One doesn't know. Similarly, you don't know what the Queen said the morning that Diana died. We don't know these things. Of course we don't. I think that the general approach that we take both to Hitch and to Alma and to the people around them is very true and accurate. And from all the response that we're getting from the people who knew Hitch and knew Alma, they are and worked with them, they are saying, finally, that is the man that we knew. We recognize that's the man we knew. So that's very gratifying. The details, It's a movie. As Hitchcock would say, it's only a movie.
I wasn't able to be in the press conference, but somebody, I believe, asked, how would Helen Mirren, over the course of her career, if you had worked with Alfred Hitchcock at various points in your career, how do you believe you would have tolerated him?
When
or
I
not?
was young, it would have been a disaster, absolute disaster, because I would have been bolshy and argumentative and, you know, a real pain in the ass and basically an idiot. Now, I would love to work with him. I would absolutely love to work with him, because now I know enough about filmmaking to understand the greatness of that technician. And when you're supported by that kind of technical ability, you know, and I'm not surprised, he didn't really direct actors. He cast them. That was his direction. Once you're cast, now it's up to you. And I kind of approve of that. I think that's absolutely right. It is up to you. As long as the structure around you is beautifully made, the way he constructed such a beautiful the mechanism is great. You just do your job in the middle of it. That's what we're paid to do, and I kind of agree with him now. I wouldn't have then. I would have been awful.